Chapter 2279. The Chibaku Tensei disappeared, and the sky turned blue again. The huge deterrent force that oppressed people's nerves also disappeared. The only thing left was the devastated earth. The surrounding environment was originally surrounded by mountains. However, Dustless activated the Chibaku Tensei, causing the mountains within a few kilometers to be razed to the ground, turning into an endless plain area. Julius. What happened just now? At this moment, Reinhardt and Julius also stopped fighting. Both of them were dumbfounded as they looked at the terrible environment around them. Who had such a heaven-defying method? It should be a natural disaster, right? Julius said with uncertainty. Thinking of the terrifying supermeteorite just now, he couldn't help but shudder. If it fell, he and Julius would definitely die. Where's the white whale? Reinhardt looked at the sky, but there was no trace of the blue sky at all. Both of us were shocked. The white whale has long been scared away. Julius said angrily. Also, that kid Kaiyuezhui seems to have disappeared too. Where did he go? On the other side, Amelia and the others left according to Dustless's instructions, but they encountered other dangers. At this moment, the girls were surrounded by a group of witch cult followers. He. The strange young man walked slowly, looking at Amelia and the others with a wicked smile, and proudly introduced himself. This is not the first time we've met, but I still have to introduce myself. I'm the witch cult's sloth great sinner, Bertrucius Romanicanti. It's absolutely impossible. That fellow has already been killed by Dustless. All the women were extremely shocked when they heard this, and their trust towards these words was zero. It could be him indeed. Amelia suddenly spoke, remembering the previous conversation with Dustless, and explained. Dustless once told me that although Bertrucius's strength is average, he is cunning and astute. He has stored the invisible hand in many of his followers, so even if the real Bertrucius dies, he can still be resurrected. This guy in front of us is probably resurrected by a host. He is indeed a scheming man. Hearing this, everyone nodded in unison. This guy looked incomparably arrogant, but he was unexpectedly smart. No wonder he lived so freely. Many thanks for the praise. As thanks, I will kill all of you in a straightforward manner. The young man possessed by Bertrucius laughed sinisterly. He glanced at Amelia and the others and noticed that one of them was missing. He frowned and said, Where is the guy I hate the most? If I remember correctly, his name was Dustless. It would have been fine if he hadn't thought of Wu Chun. Once he thought of Wu Chun, Bertrucius's face suddenly twisted and became as ferocious as a ghost. It was as exaggerated as if Wu Chun was his enemy who had killed his father, and they had an irreconcilable blood feud. After all, he had been killed by Dustless once, and this guy had even insulted the witch, which had deeply infuriated Bertrucius. Hurry up and ask that guy to come out. I want to tear him apart with my own hands. Bertrucius said angrily. He clenched his fists so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. At the same time, he began his self-mutilating exercise by biting his fingers madly. You still want to challenge Lord Dustless? You overestimate yourself. Erosa sneered at Bertrucius and poured cold water on him mercilessly. That lord can crush you with one punch. No, he can crush you with one finger. Is that so? Bertrucius was furious when he heard this. He suddenly waved his hand, and a large group of witches' followers behind him pounced on the few of them. I may not be able to do anything to Dustless, but I still have confidence in the few of you. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Under Bertrucius's command, a large group of witches' followers pounced on the few of them in a frenzy. Bertrucius's command was the command of God to them. A bunch of reckless fools. Bertrucius smiled sinisterly and said, Remember, don't hurt them. Don't let them get hurt at all. Capture them alive, especially that woman called Amelia. I want to slowly torture them to death in front of Dustless. Bang bang bang. The few of them were indeed quite strong. The witches' followers who were attacking them were no match for them at all. They were beaten up in various ways and completely swept away. A bunch of useless fools. Bertrucius cursed loudly. Then he suddenly shouted, All of you stop. As soon as his voice fell, a large number of black hands emerged from behind Bertrucius and pounced on the few of them. These black hands were extremely special. Only people with witches' genes could see them. As for Rem and the others, they could not see them either. Therefore they were all subdued in an instant. The black hands grabbed the few of them tightly, strangling them until their faces and necks turned red. It was extremely uncomfortable. He compared to me, all of you are too weak. Bertruccius laughed wildly and was extremely proud of himself. It was as if the one who was caught was dustless. Dustless will definitely crush you to death. Rem looked at Bertruccius with an unfriendly face. He was not afraid at all. There was only endless disgust. His eyes were filled with disgust as if he had seen a fat worm. He almost vomited. You're courting death. Bertruccius was furious. How dare a mere captive be so arrogant? He laughed sinisterly. Then I'll start with you. How about I break your limbs and head? That crackling sound of bones breaking is the sound of nature. Don't force your ugly habits on others, especially such cute girls. You actually want to break their limbs and heads. Calling you a pervert is an insult to the word. Dustless's lazy voice suddenly sounded. The hearts of the girls were ignited with hope. Sorry, it took some time to deal with Vegetable Subaru and White Whale. You have suffered. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2280. You're finally here. I've been dreaming about you for the past few days. Staring at Dustless, Bertruccius did not hide his hatred. To him, Dustless's appearance seemed to have interrupted the cycle of his life. In the past he was busy with how to expand the witch sect, but now because of Dustless, it directly became how to deal with him. Thinking about me? You want to kill me, right? Dustless laughed involuntarily. Looking at Amelia and the others who were bound, he said bluntly, By the way, this is all our grievances. It has nothing to do with them. Let them go. As you wish. Bertruccius was unexpectedly magnanimous. He also released the big black hands that bound the few people and focused on fighting Dustless. Of course, it was not that he was being kind, or that he had turned back. If Dustless died, these women would not be able to escape from Bertruccius's hands no matter what. Moreover, he would be distracted and weak while holding the women. Bring it on. After the women were freed, Dustless shifted his gaze and fixed it on Bertruccius, who had changed his body. Although your body has changed and you're much more handsome than before, your strength is still not flattering. Arrogant guy, go to hell and repent for your sins. Hearing this, Bertruccius was enraged. The evil black fog behind him erupted, and a purplish black hand emerged from it. It slapped toward Dustless with an earth-shattering force. Bang bang bang. Attacked by the invisible big hand, Dustless's body was suddenly scattered and fragmented, turning into golden light that floated around in the sky. He couldn't be more dead, and not even a corpse was left. But it was worth mentioning that although Dustless was crushed, there was no trace of blood. What kind of freak is this guy? Crunch, crunch. As if he was angered again, Bertruccius did his signature move again. He bit his finger angrily, and in the blink of an eye, blood flowed out. After fighting a few times, he had a good understanding of Dustless. He knew that his archenemy was safe and sound. Go to hell. Boom boom boom. The formless giant hand wantonly captured the golden light everywhere, wanting to completely crush it, not even letting go of a single ray of light. Idiot, it's just as I guessed. Although you've changed your body, your strength hasn't improved at all. I really don't know where you get the confidence to challenge me. Do you have a hobby of being killed endlessly? In the void, a large amount of light gathered, and a figure walked out of the golden light. Dustless appeared once again unharmed. Even if I can't kill you, it's the same for you. You can't kill me either. What's there to be so arrogant about? Bertruccius seemed to have really given up, and he began to verbally attack Dustless. In this world, there's nothing I can't do. The only difference is the price. Dustless glanced at the deranged Bertruccius and spoke tirelessly. In fact, a simple infinite Tsukuyomi was enough to end everything, and no creature could escape. At that time, everything would fall and come to an end. However, just as Dustless said, the price to do so was too great. It wasn't worth it for a mere Bertruccius. And as far as I know, this ability of yours isn't unsolvable. Dustless narrowed his eyes slightly. You can only forcefully possess those believers who are highly compatible. It seems that there are only a few of them. If all of them die, what do you have to fight me? You even know about this? Bertruccius's pupils suddenly shrank. He really suspected that there was a spy for Dustless in the witch sect. Don't let your imagination run wild. I'm not interested in participating in your trivial matters. Dustless waved his hand impatiently and suddenly pointed his finger at Bertruccius. I'm really sorry. This clone of yours is going to die before coming out to take a breath of fresh air. Goodbye. Ka 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 ka. Dustless's straightened thumb suddenly flashed with a bright flash. Spiritual pressure was constantly output from his body. The fist-sized energy ball was like a black hole that couldn't be filled, constantly absorbing the vast spiritual pressure in Dustless's body. Perhaps because the energy was too strong, the surrounding sky distorted, forming a huge vortex that devoured everything. Shoo shoo shoo. Immediately after, Dustless glanced at Bertruccius and flicked out the energy ball with his finger. Wang Su's flash. A thick beam of light descended from the sky. It was clearly just a narrow energy ball and looked very weak. However, the moment it left Dustless's control, it turned into an extremely thick beam of light that covered the sky. Boom, boom, boom. There was an earth-shattering explosion in the void, deafening everyone. Dustless and the others might not have noticed anything, but Bertruccius's face turned green. He gritted his teeth unwillingly. His densely packed black hands were incinerated by Dustless's void flash. Moreover, the two moves did not dissipate. The destructive beam of light was still unwilling to give up, and the remaining shockwaves blasted towards him. Get out of my way! Bertruccius roared. His body was like a spider, and a large number of black hands shot out. They all opened their hands and slapped towards the vast sky, trying to shatter the beam of light falling from the sky in one fell swoop. Boom! The moment the two collided, the shockwaves of the void flash crushed the world. The explosion shattered the sky. The black hands were unable to resist at all, and were simply annihilated. Once again, the entire army was killed. Not only that, although Bertruccius was lucky not to be hit head-on, the shockwaves from the explosion of Wang Su's flash were not something he could resist. After being engulfed by the shockwaves, he was turned into ashes again. Bertruccius was very miserable. He was killed by Dustless again. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2281. Boy, why are you in a daze? Quickly hand over the valuable things to me. The three hooligans looked at Dustless fiercely, and their words revealed a deep contempt. Looking at his sluggish appearance, he was probably scared silly. Useless trash. One of the hooligans with a knife laughed disdainfully. It seems that it really is another world from scratch. Dustless sighed and immediately picked his ears, and smiled at the three hooligans. What did you say just now? Grandpa has earplugs. I didn't hear it clearly, repeat it for me. Boy, you are courting death. Hearing this, the three of them were furious and instantly rushed over. Reckless thing. Dustless saw this and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. This kind of mortal, he didn't want to lower himself to their level, but if the other party wants to die, then there is no other way. Killing you all would be letting you off too easily. Just live on in fear. The scarlet eyes blinked and a majestic eye power invaded the minds of these people. Plop. These people obviously couldn't resist Dustless's Sharingan, and they suddenly fell to the ground, their bodies trembling. Idiot, next time when I rob, I must pick the old, weak, women and children. Without looking at the three of them, Dustless walked out of the alley. Rumble. At this time, Dustless's stomach failed to live up to his expectations, and his pace suddenly accelerated a lot. Let's find a place to eat first, the rest can be discussed later. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. At the moment when he was about to walk out of the alley, a black shadow sped past. Although the figure was very short and was still a child, but the skill was abnormally strong, and he skillfully jumped on the wall and disappeared from Dustless's sight. That kid just now seems to be Ferret, right? A short kid suddenly appeared in his mind. Dustless muttered to himself. What a familiar scene. Could it be that ferret snatched Amelia's badge? Dustless lowered his head and thought while walking, some places are always amazing coincidences. Ta-ta-ta-ta. At this moment, the sound of messy footsteps came from the front. Dustless was obviously too engrossed in his thoughts. He still kept his head down and didn't give way. Bang. The mysterious newcomer bumped into Dustless in an instant, and both of them retreated at the same time. Why are there so many unlucky things happening when I just came to this world? Am I possessed by the tragic protagonist, Leon? Wu Chen muttered. At the same time, he raised his eyes and his pupils suddenly shrank. The person who bumped into Dustless was a delicate and cute girl. She had hair that reached her waist, purple eyes that sparkled like crystals, and a white flower on her forehead. Realizing that this person was strangely familiar, Dustless subconsciously asked, Amelia? You know me. The silver-haired girl's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. She stared at Dustless again and again, and finally shook her head. I know you, but you definitely don't know me. Dustless smiled and introduced himself. Nice to meet you, my name is... Without giving Dustless time to introduce himself, an anxious shout suddenly came. Amelia, that guy is Dustless, he's with that thief. What the hell? Someone actually knows me. Is there a transmigrator like me? Dustless was flabbergasted, and he stood there stupidly without moving. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of icicles suddenly shot at Dustless, and easily froze him. His whole body was covered in thick ice, and only his head was fine for the time being. Good job, Parker. The voice spoke again, its tone wild with joy. It ran over from behind Amelia, and Dustless was extremely familiar with this person, Leon. He was also the most tragic protagonist of the year. June, that's impossible. How does this guy Leon know me? Dustless was covered in thick ice, and his body's movements were restricted. He couldn't figure it out and wondered in his heart. This is clearly the first time we've met. Why is this kid looking at me with such an expression? Looking up, he saw Leon staring at Dustless with bloodshot eyes. This feeling was as if he had met the enemy who killed his father, and he couldn't wait to tear Dustless into pieces. This should be the first time we've met, right? Dustless was the first to speak. However, Leon did not care. He said to Amelia, This guy is called Dustless. He's in cahoots with the kid who stole your badge just now, and... Leon looked at Dustless with hatred and slandered. This guy is simply a deranged bastard. The degree of his cruelty is outrageous. He doesn't even spare the old, the weak, the women and the children. The number of innocent women he raped is at least 10,000, if not 100,000. So deranged? Is there such a bad person in the world? Amelia's face was also full of shock, and then she looked at Dustless seriously and asked coldly, Is what Leon said true? Dustless was dumbfounded, and his mind was in a mess. The beginning of this script is not right. I've always been the one to slander others, but this time, someone has turned the tables, and it's that little bastard Leon. No doubt this is the first time I've met him, but why does he hate me? Dustless's brain cells sped up, and then he had a flash of inspiration, and muttered to himself. This kid even knows my name. This is the strangest part. Seems like there's only one possibility. Could it be that Leon was killed by me in the past, and then death's return, and knows that I'm the big boss of the villain, so he hates me so much? Does he want to use Amelia to get rid of me? With this thought, the confusion in Dustless's heart suddenly cleared up. If Leon was killed by him in the past, then it was reasonable for him to hate Dustless now. This time, I'm going to kill you. Leon looked at Dustless with hostility. Dustless had guessed right. He was cut into pieces by Dustless, and his body was fed to the monsters. After he was rewound and resurrected, Leon hated Dustless to the core. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2282. This is interesting. I used to be the only one who knew the future, but now Leon has turned the tables. Even I have fallen into his trap. Wu Chen smiled but didn't say anything. He looked at Amelia and explained, Young miss, everything I said before is obviously nonsense. I don't know that thief and we aren't in the same group. We haven't even met. Amelia, don't listen to his bullshit. I can guarantee you that he is the demon of the night. A pervert who won't let go of the old, the weak, the women and the children. Keiichi Subaru continued to defame her. The previous miserable memory emerged in his heart. He was almost killed by Dustless, and in the end he was chopped into 8 pieces and fed to the demon beasts. Although he was now in the samsara of death, there was still a shadow that couldn't be erased. Therefore, Kaiwa Subaru decided to take the initiative. Instead of waiting for Dustless to take revenge on him, he might as well take the initiative and kill him. Little girl, you don't really believe him, do you? Noticing that Amelia was looking at him suspiciously, Dustless was extremely depressed. What Dark Knight Demon King? It was completely fabricated by this brat. I believe in Pleiades. You are a good person. He will not accuse you. Amelia finally stood on Leon's side and looked at Dustless with hostility. I can't believe I was tricked by Kaiwa Pleiades. If I don't make you suffer, I will take your last name. Wu Chen was furious. His body emitted a dangerous energy fluctuation. The ice that froze his body made a ka-ka-ka sound. His scarlet eyes locked on Liu Subaru. Bang! Dustless's aura was seriously too horrifying, instantly shattering the ice that covered his body. Little mouse hiding in the dark, come out. Dustless's gaze swept past Amelia and Liu Subaru. Behind the two of them, there was a flickering figure, especially that head of fiery red hair and white coat, which was extremely dazzling. Such sharp senses. The handsome young man frowned and did not mingle with the crowd. He was handsome and had a slender sword at his waist. This guy is called Reinhardt, right? Dustless muttered to himself. He knew that the guy in front of him had inherited the title of Sword Saint. His strength was at the peak of this world. But Dustless was not afraid of him. Clang, clang, clang. Reinhardt put his hands in his pockets and looked at Dustless with a serious look in his eyes. A look of disbelief flashed across his eyes as he muttered to himself in disbelief. My sword seems to be trembling. Why is that? Reinhardt's sword was very special. It was called the Dragon Sword. Read. It had its own consciousness. If it judged that the opponent was not qualified to draw it, it would not take the initiative to unsheath it. If the opponent was strong, Reinhardt's sword would automatically unsheath. Why is it shaking? Reinhardt was extremely confused. His right hand reached for the dragon's sword at his waist. In an instant, his arm also began to shake with the frequency. This feeling made Reinhardt very cautious. The dragon's sword seemed to have met its natural enemy, and was terrified of its opponent. It should be an illusion. Reinhardt lowered his head and muttered to himself. His eyes were fixed on Dustless. His face was full of smiles and he looked quite gentle and good-looking. It was hard to associate him with a bad guy. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Keiichi Subaru suddenly stood in front of Amelia and showed a faint smile. In the face of Dustless's murderous gaze, she was as calm as a breeze. If there's anything, just come at me. Don't hurt Amelia. She's just a girl. If you're not happy with me, just come at me. I promise I won't even blink an eye. Well said. Reinhardt smiled and looked at Keiichi Subaru. She clearly knew that she might not be Dustless's opponent, but she still stood in the front line without hesitation. This kind of person was worthy of admiration. He gave her a heartfelt thumbs up. Why are you protecting me? We just met. The simple Amelia was also very touched. Her eyes were like the dazzling sun as she gently gazed at Keiichi Subaru. Some things, no matter who is right or wrong, as a man, I have to stand in front of a girl without hesitation. That's all. If there's anything you're not happy with, just come at me, Dustless. Keiichi Subaru waved her hand with a look of righteousness. She was very free and easy, as if she would not regret being killed by Dustless in the next second. I'm convinced by this show of pretentiousness. Dustless's old face twitched, and 100,000 alpacas' army flew through his mind. This stinky boy dares to use me to pick up girls. Good boy, his tricks are really deep. No wonder he's a time traveler. You want to fight with me? See how I'll kill you. Keiichi Subaru was expressionless, but she was laughing in her heart. According to the development of the plot before the return of death, her words had indeed angered Dustless. Dustless wanted to kill her, But with Reinhardt, the sword saint, there, he was temporarily stopped. Keiichi Subaru was deeply in love with Emilia, so knowing Dustless's future, Keiichi Subaru would definitely not let go of this good opportunity to show off to Emilia and show her his manliness. Even if I'm killed, I have a clear conscience. Keiichi Subaru's lips curled up slightly, and he saw Emilia looking at him gratefully. What happened next was indeed as Keiichi Subaru had imagined, and Dustless was really angry. Come at you? I'll fulfill your wish. Dustless sneered and his eyes turned a bit. Then he said in a deep voice, Heavenly hand power. In the next second, Dustless switched places with Rock, who was next to Keiichi Subaru. Something's wrong. Keiichi Subaru saw Dustless descending from the sky, and her mouth was wide open, and her head was buzzing. She cursed in her heart. He should be fighting with Reinhardt. Why is he fighting with me? Did I remember the previous plot wrongly? Let me enjoy it. The enraged Dustless grabbed Keiichi Subaru, and with a wave of his hand, he slapped Keiichi Subaru to the ground and raised his foot to step on him. Who told you to use me to show off? Who told you to pick up girls with me? Who told you to slander me? Every time Keiichi Subaru roared, a footprint would appear on his face. Chapter 2283. Bang, bang, bang. Dustless's big foot continued to trample on Setsuki Subaru's face without any mercy. Every time it landed, in addition to a footprint, there were also bloodstains. You dare to trick me? I'll make you regret living in this world. Dustless beat Setsuki Subaru as hard as he could. However, the situation this time was different. If he hit too hard and this bastard rewound, would he rewind as well? This kid's advantage is quite big. Dustless complained in his heart. Just as he was about to stomp on Setsuki Subaru, a cold blade came from behind. Swoosh, swoosh. The dangerous blade carried the sound of breaking through the air, and swept towards Wu Chen's back. As far as sneak attacks are concerned, your movements are too big. Dustless turned his head to look at the crimson-haired man and grinned. Shinra Tensei. Bang. A majestic wave suddenly erupted, and the blade was bounced away. The crimson-haired man was also shaken by the powerful force, and was forced to retreat. What a strange move. Who exactly are you? Reinhardt looked at Dustless cautiously and immediately said, People from the Sword Saint family will not sneak attack others. Really? Sword Saint? It sounds so scary. Dustless turned his head to look at Reinhardt with a faint smile on his face. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Reinhardt. This guy is Dustless. His move is very dangerous, and it is released through those eyes. I remember it's called Rinnegan. Setsuki Subaru, who had been stomped dozens of times by Dustless, pointed at Dustless and explained, Be careful, these eyes can bang, bang, bang. However, before Setsuki Subaru's voice fell, Dustless stomped on him dozens of times in a row. That's for your cheap mouth. That's for stealing my lines. That's for showing off. Dustless stomped on him dozens of times in a row. Although he did not kill Setsuki Subaru to prevent him from rewinding, his strength was extremely terrifying. Setsuki Subaru's entire cheek was badly mutilated, and he grimaced in pain with a ferocious expression. Don't think that you can ride on my head and show off just because you know my future. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes and tricks are just asking for humiliation. Dustless smiled disdainfully. In fact, it's good that you can't die. I'll let you understand what it means to live. Swoosh, swoosh. Behind his back, a large number of icicles suddenly emerged, shooting towards Dustless uniformly. Bang, bang. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. So swoosh. So swoosh. So swoosh. 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 So swoosh. Swoosh. So swoosh. Swoosh. Even though his entire body was frozen, Dustless still looked natural in the ice. He looked at Emilia helplessly and confusedly. Setsuki Subaru is really fast. God knows how many bad things he said about me to this girl. Dustless could not help but have a headache. He also knew that Emilia was not a bad person. She was just fooled by Setsuki Subaru. How dare you beat up Lord Plio? Unforgivable. Amelia's body erupted with a large amount of cold air, and all of it hit the frozen Dustless. The ice actually made a caw-caw-caw sound, and once it completely collapsed, Dustless would definitely shatter like the ice. I can't forgive you? This is really unreasonable. Dustless shook his head and explained, I don't know that thief at all. This brat framed me. According to my previous style, I would have long dismembered him into pieces and thrown his corpse into the river to feed the fish. Gulp. Setsuki Subaru shuddered when he heard this. Before the samsara of death, Dustless had indeed done this. Therefore he hated Dustless to the core. Lord Pleo would never accuse a bad person like you. Amelia looked coldly at Dustless. She clenched her fists tightly when she saw Setsuki Subaru's bloody body. Amelia charcoal. Seeing the furious Amelia, Keiichi Subaru's face was full of tears. She felt that it was worth it to be beaten up by Dustless. At least Amelia was the same as her. It should be understood that during the samsara of death, Amelia was fooled by Dustless and hated Keiichi Subaru very much. Setsuki Subaru was very excited now that she finally valued him. F***CK your mother. Looking at the overjoyed Kaiyeya Subaru, Wuchin just uttered these words silently. Little girl, you are very kind. You don't need to hang out with this trash. Dustless was frozen in the ice. If he were an ordinary person, he would have turned into a popsicle. However, Dustless was safe and sound. He said in a lazy and calm tone, This is the first time I met this guy. But he knows my name and my moves. Don't you think it's strange? That's true. Re-Inherit and Amelia were both stunned. They were not reckless people. They were very smart. After thinking about it, they realized that something was wrong. Setsuki Subaru knew Dustless so well. He even knew the names of his moves. Obviously, they had known each other before. Don't listen to his nonsense. Seeing that the two of them were shaken, Keiichi Subaru quickly said, After all, this guy is a womanizer who is feared by everyone. It's understandable that you have heard of him. Boy, it's a small world. You just wait and see. Dustless glared at Setsuki Subaru and said, In order to prove my innocence, I can lead you to find the little girl who stole the badge. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2284. Are you sure? Looking at Dustless suspiciously, Amelia did not hide her doubts. Something is wrong with the script. The half-dead Mao Yuang was depressed. According to the original plot of Return of the Dead, he should have brought Amelia to find Ferret and successfully obtain the badge. He should have also won the appreciation of the beauty. How did he become Dustless? Of course, why would I lie to you? Dustless looked at Amelia and explained. Just now, I saw the little girl's face clearly. Coincidentally, I know that she lives in the slums. When we find her, we will know whether I am innocent or not. That's true. Just say yes, Leah. The white cat that had been hiding in Amelia's neck suggested. Even Parker has fallen from grace. Damn it. Keiichi Subaru glanced at Dustless with resentment. She was so angry that smoke was coming out of her 7 orifices. She didn't understand why Parker suddenly liked this guy. Parker, is he really reliable? Amelia lowered her head and stroked Parker's fur. She could not help but look at Dustless a few more times. He is not reliable, but... Parker answered straightforwardly. His cat eyes squinted slightly as he carefully sized up Dustless. He could not help but shake his head and said, I can't tell how strong he is, but my intuition tells me that if we fight with him, it will be more serious than just now. So just say yes, Leah. But this guy is frozen by me. Amelia frowned. Dustless was currently frozen by a thick layer of ice and his movements were restricted. It's useless. Parker looked at Dustless with a shrewd gaze. Look at this guy. He looks like he is about to fall asleep. How can he be frozen? In other words, if a person was about to be frozen, they should be nervous. But Dustless, on the other hand, was about to fall asleep. This was too strange. I also suggest that you go with him. Reinhardt, who had been silent, interrupted. He looked at Dustless cautiously. The gentleness in his eyes disappeared in a flash, and was replaced by a serious look. Although he had not fought with Dustless before, there was an inexplicable voice in his heart that told him that this guy in front of him was very scary and extremely powerful. Moreover, he had doubts about what Keiichi Subaru said before. How could a powerful person do those sneaky things? The chances were too slim. Bang. At the same time, the ice that froze Wu Chen's body instantly exploded and turned into debris all over the ground. However, Wu Chen's complexion did not change. There was a slight smile on his ruddy face as if nothing had happened just now. It was hard to associate his smile with that of a womanizer. This bastard. Why isn't he following the script? How preposterous. What he did was different from what happened before with the return of the dead. Keiichi Subaru cursed angrily in her heart. She stared at Wu Chen, who was in high spirits and felt depressed. She had planned to show off her power in front of Amelia, but the result was exactly what she had said. She failed to show off and was trampled on. As a result, Keiichi Subaru's face was disfigured. However, it was not difficult for Keiichi Subaru. As long as he used the return of the dead, again, all the previous tragedies would happen again. Okay, I promise you that you will lead us to find the thief. If you are really wronged, I am willing to sincerely apologize. Amelia finally agreed to Dustless's condition. At the same time, she walked to Keiichi Subaru's side and helped him heal the scar on his cheek. Gosh, this chick is too kind. Dustless glanced at Amelia, who was helping Keiichi Subaru, and shook his head. At the same time, he frowned. I can't let Keiichi Subaru die. This guy can't be killed. If I kill him, his protagonist aura will activate again. That overpowered, rewind skill might even drag me back and start all over again. Dustless was in a dilemma. This was the first time he had encountered such a tricky situation. No matter how he killed Keiichi Subaru, this guy would come back to life again. Let's go. I will take you to find that little bastard and prove your innocence. About half an hour later, Keiichi Subaru's bloody face had returned to normal. However, his whole face was still swollen like a hydrogen balloon. Damn you, Dustless. I will not forgive you. Keiichi Subaru, who was grimacing in pain, glared at Wu Chen. Her eyes were fixed on Wu Chen, as if she wanted to swallow him alive. Also, damn it, this is like seeing a ghost. Is there something wrong with my skill? Keiichi Subaru cursed in his mind. According to the plot before his death return, Dustless wouldn't even bother to talk to them. He would crush them with his overwhelming strength and then walk away. However, this time, Dustless took the initiative to take them to find Ferret. How could Keiichi Subaru not be surprised? Cleo-kun, can you walk? Amelia asked with concern. Of course I can walk. This guy's leg is not broken. Why can't I walk? I just stepped on his face. Dustless looked at Keiichi Subaru with a smile and said, Boy, are you trying to pretend that your leg is broken so that this lady can help you take advantage of it? You. How is that possible? I'm not a despicable person like you. Keiichi Subaru looked at Dustless seriously. He wanted to grab Amelia's hand, but after hearing what Dustless said, he immediately pushed Amelia away. This bastard must be doing it on purpose. Keiichi Subaru cursed Dustless in his mind. His heart was bleeding. He had planned to do it, but after hearing what Dustless said, he even helped Amelia up. Didn't that mean that he agreed with Dustless's words? Don't think that you are so great just because you can rewind. Dustless sneered. Keiichi Subaru could only rewind if he died. If he didn't die, his skill would be useless and he would still be a weak piece of trash. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2285. Dustless sneered. Looking at Keiichi Subaru's bitter face, he knew that he had guessed right. This guy did have such a shameless idea. You want to use me to pick up girls? You are quite ambitious. How dare you use me to slap your face? Dustless moved closer to Keiichi Subaru and said in a low voice, You can show off in front of me, but if you go too far, I can't help but throw you to the fish. That would be a tragedy. You. Hearing Dustless's threat, Keiichi Subaru trembled and looked at Dustless with fear. He knew that this guy was a man of his words. Before the return of death, He had been cut into pieces by Dustless and fed to the magical beasts. Wait and see. Glaring at Dustless fiercely, Keiichi hid behind Amelia and Reinhardt in an extremely cowardly manner. Trash. Wu Chen smiled contemptuously. Then he led the way in the front and said lazily, hurry up. Let's finish it before dark. Then we can find a place to eat. Dustless left as soon as he finished speaking. His memory was not bad, so he knew the approximate location of the slums. Follow me, Leah. Parker gave her a comforting look. Although he trusted Keiichi, Dustless didn't give him the first impression that he was a bad guy. On the surface, he looked a little unreliable and glib-tongued, but he was very calm, as if he had everything under control. About half an hour later, Dustless, Amelia and the others came to a dilapidated slum. The environment was stinky, and flies were flying everywhere. The strange smell was disgusting. The people living here were also thin and sallow. Their clothes were ragged, and their eyes were cloudy and listless. It seemed that they hadn't eaten for a long time. Girl, this is a dog-eat-dog world. If you are so kind, you will be plotted against sooner or later. There is a limit to everything. Excessive kindness will be used by others. In an abandoned house, Amelia's forehead was covered in sweat. She was saving a fainted drifter. It seemed that she hadn't eaten for many days. Her breathing was very weak. This guy is really too kind. Dustless looked at Amelia helplessly. Amelia had saved quite a few people along the way. Mind your own business. Amelia glanced at Dustless. Because of Keiichi, she hated Dustless. Maybe it was because Dustless beat her. Hee, you deserve it. Seeing this scene, Keiichi laughed gloatingly. She was extremely happy to see Wu Chen suffer. Haha, you can laugh slowly. Sooner or later, you will cry bitterly. In this regard, Dustless also smiled faintly. He was also an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. It was impossible for him to get angry just because of someone's ridicule. Let's go. After a few more minutes, Amelia put out the fire of the sallow and emaciated drifter. She also gave him a small amount of money. After that, she followed Dustless to find Ferret and ask for the badge. We're here. Pointing at the dilapidated house not far away, Dustless finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, I didn't remember it wrong. Otherwise, I would have to live with the name of a thief. Is this the place? It seems that the thief who stole my badge was forced to do so. He treated the badge as something valuable, and just wanted to make a living. Amelia looked around and said to herself, Ferret's house could barely shelter them from the wind and rain. The house in front of them had been in disrepair for many years. Some parts of the house had already decayed into dregs. You're right. Although that little girl stole from you, she was forced to do so. If she could live a carefree life, who would be willing to be a thief? It was hard to live a human life. Sometimes you have to do things that you can't help but have to do. Dustless said with a lot of emotion. It sounds reasonable. Amelia nodded slightly. It was rare for her to agree with Dustless's point of view. Humph, it sounds like you are trying to absolve yourself of your crime. A sarcastic voice came. Turning around, it was Keiichi. As for Reinhardt, he had quietly left. As for what he was going to do, Dustless didn't know. He guessed that he was looking for more people to help deal with Dustless just in case. Facing Dustless alone, Reinhardt didn't have enough confidence. Creak. The door was gently opened, and a young head popped out. She looked at Dustless with a puzzled face. Who are you? This person with a mouthful of doubts blinked her bright eyes. Her voice was quite crisp. This young girl was Ferret. Amelia recognized her at a glance. Give me back the things you took. I can let bygones be bygones. If it was something else, I wouldn't want it. But that badge means too much to me. Amelia looked at the short Ferret and said in a very gentle tone. Perhaps in her opinion, Ferret was still an insensible child. The reason why she became a thief was that she was forced to do so. After all, life in the slums was too difficult. It was difficult to even fill one's stomach. Who stole your things? Don't falsely accuse me. Do you think that I am easy to bully because I am young? Ferret put her hands on her hips and yelled, Master Rom, someone is here to cause trouble. As soon as she said this, a huge and strong old man swooped down. Because of his huge body, The ground trembled slightly when he walked. Who is it that is causing trouble in my territory? Do you want to be smashed into meat paste by me? The giant old man named Ram was very domineering. He carried a huge hammer in his hand, and his aura was awe-inspiring. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2286. Old Man Step Aside. It's not easy to live to such an old age. Go and retire quietly. You're old and weak. If you get injured, you might die. There's no place for you to behave atrociously here. Dustless was not afraid at all when he saw the old man with eyes as big as brass bells. Gulp. On the other hand, Kaiwa Subaru was so scared that he hid behind Amelia, his body trembling slightly. Although the death return skill was quite powerful, it did not increase his combat power. After all, Kaiwa Subaru was still a weakling. Moreover, this golden finger had a huge flaw. It could only be used when he was dead. Therefore, Kaiwa Subaru was called the most tragic protagonist of the year. Little brat, you're so young but you talk big. Ferocity flashed in Master Ram's old eyes. He lifted the huge hammer and smashed it down. Ha 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 ha. Well done. It's best to smash Dustless into minced meat. He's such an eyesore. I don't want him to spoil my plans every day. I'm the protagonist destined to save the alternate world. Kaiwa Subaru laughed and cheered in his heart. He gave the crazy Master Ram a thumbs up. Lord Pleiades, Amelia frowned. She was disgusted by this attitude. However, when she recalled the damage Dustless had done to her, she was relieved. In her opinion, Kaiwa Subaru was just holding back his anger. He would return to normal once he vented it out. Seeing the hammer falling on his head, Dustless was calm and relaxed. He stretched out his skinny arm lazily and said, "Old man, you're so old and yet you're still looking for trouble. You'll be killed sooner or later. You arrogant guy. Do you think you can block Master Ram's attack with one hand? You're overestimating yourself. Run if you know what's good for you. I didn't steal anything from you." Falut crossed her arms in front of her and pouted slightly. She did not hide the sneer on her face. She quickly distanced herself from Master Ram, as if she was afraid that Dustless would be smashed into minced meat and his blood would stain her body. This guy. You're no match for him. Run away from Dustless. Amelia also became nervous. She couldn't help but worry for Dustless. He sincerely felt that he was overestimating himself. After all, how powerful could a hand that had not been enchanted with magic power be? He was probably not much stronger than an ordinary person. Although Amelia hated Dustless because of Kaiwa Subaru, she didn't want him to die, especially when he was trying to help her find her badge. Boom boom boom. Faint mana fluctuations burst out of Dustless's body, and just as Amelia was about to save him, the mace smashing down had already covered Dustless's head. Ah, this is bad, this is bad. Seeing such a cruel scene, I'm definitely going to have nightmares. Falut hurriedly closed her eyes and covered her eyes with her hands, unable to bear to look at this bloody scene. Keiichi Subaru was the same. He quickly covered his eyes. In terms of endurance, he might not be as good as Falut. After all, he had always been a flower in a greenhouse. How could he withstand the destruction of the storm? Bang! The hammer hit Dustless's body, creating a dull explosion. It was as if his body was smashed. The horrifying sound made Falut and Keiichi Subaru shiver. They couldn't help but shiver. Master Ram, did this guy become a meat patty? Did you really do it? Actually, I just wanted to scare him away. I didn't expect you to really kill him. Falut was in a dilemma. Her tone was filled with self-blame. She felt bad that she had saved a life for no reason. After all, she and Dustless had never met before, and there was no blood feud between them. However, Master Luomu kept his mouth shut. The entire place was dead silent. Master Ram, Out of curiosity, Falut moved her hands away and opened her eyes. Her shining pupils suddenly froze. How is this possible? Falut's tone was filled with endless shock. Dustless really did it. It was just one hand. It looked so thin and weak, but it blocked Master Ram's attack. Dustless's mace didn't fall on his head. He looked so relaxed and casual. No. It wasn't appropriate to say that it was just one hand. Looking up, Dustless only used his middle finger to catch the mace that was smashing towards his head. This guy is so strong. Seeing this scene, not to mention the others, even Amelia was so shocked that she opened her mouth wide. Her eyes widened as she stared at Dustless, who was as steady as a mountain. Her heart skipped a beat. There's no fluctuation of magic. Did he catch it with his body? What a monster. How hard is this guy's body? Amelia took a deep breath, and her heart almost jumped out of her chest. Damn bastard. Why is his body so hard? Is he the main character, or am I the main character? Are you kidding me? Kaituki Subaru was also dumbfounded. She looked at Dustless, who had blocked Master Luomu's attack with a single finger. She was jealous and envious. Thinking of her pathetic gold finger, she burst into tears. Why was there such a huge gap between people? He can block my attack with one finger? A magical beast? That's impossible too. Master Rom's heart skipped a beat. He gritted his teeth and roared in a daze. Even if a magical beast doesn't have the slightest resistance or defense, it can still be smashed to death by me. This guy used one finger. It must be witchcraft. Hee, you want to smash me to death? Dustless pursed his lips and chuckled. He raised one finger. Anyway, I'm bored for the time being. Why don't I give you a chance to destroy me? Old man, do it 100 million times. Dustless was too lazy to explain. He glanced at the broken mace. You want to destroy me with this thing? This isn't a fairy tale. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2287. Cough, cough, cough. Master Rum suddenly coughed twice, his face twitched, and said in a strange tone, "Misunderstanding, this is all a misunderstanding." The form was stronger than the person. When it was time to lower one's head, one had to lower one's head. After living for most of his life, Master Luomu understood this basic principle very well. Old man, you are very flexible. Dustless smiled and did not make things difficult for him. He looked at Ferret and said calmly, "Putting aside the time when you stole Amelia's badge, this should be the first time we met." Although Ferret did not know what Dustless was talking about, it was the truth, so he nodded and confirmed that Dustless was telling the truth. Oh no, I'm going to be exposed. Seeing this, Kaitsuki Subaru's heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously looked at Dustless, but he was nowhere to be seen. Boy, you accused me of colluding with Ferret and being her accomplice, right? Now how are you going to explain this? Sensing danger, Kaitsuki Subaru was about to hide behind Amelia, but he did not expect a cold voice from behind. Before he could run to Amelia's back, he was caught by a big hand. Who caught me? Let me go. Kaitsuki Subaru felt even more uneasy. The moment he turned his head, his pupils suddenly shrank, and he shouted angrily, "Dustless, let me go." Being carried by Dustless like a chicken, Kaitsuki Subaru felt particularly aggrieved. Let him go. Amelia was stunned for a moment, then she scolded, "Bullying a weak person like Plyakin will only make you look shameless." It doesn't matter. Dustless did not care. He smiled and said very casually, "Anyway, I'm thick-skinned. It's useless for you to mock me. I've always been a person with flaws. Since he dared to slander me, what's wrong with me teaching him a lesson?" Amelia's pretty face was extremely embarrassed. It was undeniable that this matter was indeed Kaitsuki Subaru's fault. After all, he had accused Dustless of colluding with Ferret. Now that the truth was clear, teaching this boy a lesson was reasonable. My lord is magnanimous. Dustless looked at Kai Yuahong with a generous face. I'll give you 2 chances. Kneel down and kowtow to admit your mistake, or I'll beat you up. Which one do you choose? You call this magnanimous? Dustless's words made Kayuezuo's nose almost crooked. She glared at him and said, "You want me to kneel before you? Dream on." All right then. Dustless's eyes turned cold. He fiercely pushed Kayuezwa to the ground and kicked her. How dare you accuse me? Let's see how arrogant you can be. That's what you get for not having the ability to act tough. That's what you get for relying on your rewind cheat. In less than a minute, Footprints appeared on Keiichi Subaru's face. Dustless didn't show any mercy. Every time he stepped on Keiichi Subaru's face, a deep red footprint would appear. Damn it, stop. Amelia couldn't stand it anymore. She was kind by nature. How could she tolerate Dustless bullying the weak like this? Stop, Amelia. At this moment, Parker suddenly flew out and stood in front of Amelia. Parker, aren't you close to Lord Plyogen? Why are you stopping me now? Amelia was confused. Parker and Lord Plyogen had argued before. These are two different things. Parker shook his head. Looking at Kaiyuezwa, who was being beaten up, his eyes revealed a hint of coldness. He explained, Lord Plyogen is actually being merciful by not killing someone who is countless times stronger than him. Every strong person has their own dignity, who can tolerate being challenged and accused by a weak ant. So it's not a bad thing to let Lord Plyogen suffer. This way he will be able to see things clearly. This seems to be true. Amelia tilted her head and nodded. He knew that he wasn't as strong as Dustless, yet he still went to challenge him. Who could he blame for being beaten up? He was lucky that he wasn't killed. In fact, it was worth mentioning that Dustless also wanted to kill Keiichi Subaru. The key was that this guy's death return was too powerful. He could be resurrected even if he was killed. It was useless, so it was better to torture him physically. Ah, it's so lively here. Kaiyuezwa's scream attracted the attention of the crowd. Many people were watching silently. After all, Dustless was too cruel. Kaiyuezwa's face was bloody and his eyes were bleeding. Of course, there were also those who were bold enough to walk over in a grandiose manner. This guy seems to be. Dustless sensed that he was being targeted. He immediately looked up and saw a woman with a pretty face and a hot body walking over slowly. Gut Hunter Alyssa? This name suddenly popped up in Dustless's mind. He frowned and walked up to Amelia. He reminded her, Girl, this woman is dangerous. You better be careful. Is she as dangerous as you? Amelia looked at Dustless calmly. Hearing this, Dustless was speechless. He moved the corner of his mouth, but in the end he remained silent. He had repeatedly insulted Kaiyuezwa. This girl probably hated him very much. She was only talking to him now out of basic courtesy. However, he still kindly reminded her. Anyway, be careful. This woman has a dangerous nickname, Gut Hunter. Amelia still looked at Dustless indifferently and didn't say anything. It was enough to show that she didn't like Dustless. Handsome guy, how should I address you? Alyssa walked over slowly and looked at Dustless's face. She smiled and asked, but her eyes were full of vigilance. She didn't see Dustless appearing behind Kaiyuezwa in a flash. His speed was extremely fast. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2288. Goodbye. I'll leave now. Don't worry, I promise I won't appear in front of you again. The colorless king fled frantically. After escaping from the gates of hell, he cherished his life even more. Swish, swish, swish. His body turned into a dazzling light and disappeared into the vast sky. Someone as powerful as Dustless could easily destroy his confidence. How terrifying would he be when he was serious? Thinking of this, the colorless king felt a chill down his spine. Is the body cold? Turning his head to look at Toshiro, who had closed his eyes, Dustless left decisively. After all, this guy's death had nothing to do with him, so there was nothing to feel guilty about. Moreover, in the original work, this guy was killed by the colorless king. Let them take revenge on the colorless king. Anyway, the video recorded the murderer, so Dustless didn't have to worry about anything. As for the force behind Toshiro, he was one of its members. There were many people in the organization, and most of them were gangsters. They were extremely violent and arrogant. The person who led them was the Red King Zhoufangzuan. Now that Toshiro was dead, this group of people would definitely not let it go. They would fight the colorless king to the death. Forget it, I'll talk about the future in the future. For now, I'll find a place to fill my stomach. I'm hungry too. Dustless lowered his head and looked around. Then he saw a restaurant in the distance and walked over. Meow meow meow. Just as Dustless left, a cute cat with pure white fur suddenly walked out from the darkness. After looking at the bloody scene, it didn't stay any longer and followed Dustless's footsteps. As for the Izona Society, it only took a few more glances. About an hour later. Where should I go? I can't always wander around, right? Late at night, Dustless was in a dilemma. He sat alone on a park bench, staring at the stars in the sky. He was in a daze, bored out of his mind. Beside him was a plastic bag full of various snacks. Meow meow meow. Suddenly, a white kitten slowly walked over. It looked at the food in the bag, but it seemed to be very afraid of Dustless. It didn't dare to get close. Its voice was very pitiful, but it sounded more like a spoiled child. It's the middle of the night. I didn't expect a cat to keep me company. Dustless smiled bitterly and sighed. He immediately threw a few bags of snacks to the white kitten. The kitten was extremely smart. It raised its paw and tore the bags into pieces. What a smart kitten. Dustless was slightly taken aback. Soon after, he looked at the night sky in boredom, thinking about where to go next. Continuing to wander was not a good idea. Meow 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 meow. The kitten seemed to think that Dustless was not a bad person. She suddenly jumped into Dustless's arms and looked at him eagerly. Out of the corner of her eyes, she peeked at the snacks in the bag. Up to you, Dustless said casually as he stroked the white kitten's hair. Gotcha. The kitten's eyes lit up. It seemed to understand Dustless's words. She raised her paw and tore the closed bag of snacks with great familiarity. She began to eat heartily. It seemed that she was starving. Hee hee hee. About 10 minutes later, the white kitten finished all the snacks. She laid lazily in Dustless's arms and made strange noises. This world is really strange. Even cats can king burp. Dustless complained with a speechless face. In the end he left, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. The kitten seemed to be intelligent. Her eyes looked at Dustless's back. After hesitating for a while, she finally followed Dustless's footsteps. Just like that, one person gradually disappeared under the night sky. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The white kitten's 2 small feet were abnormally strong. With a light jump, she easily jumped onto Dustless's shoulder. Immediately, she lay down on all fours peacefully. She narrowed her eyes in satisfaction. She looked like she was enjoying herself and licked the corner of her mouth from time to time. Dustless didn't say anything when he saw this. The corners of his mouth raised into a thought-provoking arc. He hummed a little tune. He had already vaguely guessed something and understood the identity of this cat. It wasn't an ordinary kitten. Kitten, you should be able to understand me, right? Dustless looked at the kitten on his shoulder with a smile. Then he suddenly held her in his hands. The white kitten was silent. She looked into Dustless's deep eyes and finally nodded. Very good. No matter what kind of creature you are, you have to be honest to be likable. Dustless nodded in satisfaction. You should be able to change into a human's appearance, right? The white kitten was completely stunned when she heard this. She looked at Dustless in surprise. His bright eyes seemed to be able to see through all her secrets. She looked at Dustless's eyes warily. After discovering that he wasn't hostile, she finally nodded again. It seems that my luck isn't bad. A beauty took the initiative to throw herself into my arms. Under the cold night sky, the cold wind raged. Dustless smiled as if he was trying to find joy in the midst of bitterness. After all, the white kitten's human appearance was that of a well-developed girl. Bang! Suddenly, a large amount of white mist appeared in front of Dustless. The white kitten in his hands also disappeared. It was obvious that she had disappeared. Immediately after, a white naked body fell from the sky. Dustless subconsciously reached out and hugged her. A rich fragrance rushed into his ears and nose. Dustless couldn't help but be a little dazed. Fortunately, it was late at night and there was no one around. Moreover, no one could see her body. Otherwise, she would really be exposed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2289. Dustless's face darkened. He hurriedly took off his coat and put it on Kitty as fast as lightning. He looked at the naive young girl in annoyance. You brat, I only asked you if you can turn into a human, but if I'm an inexperienced pervert, you'll be in trouble. Dustless scolded in annoyance. The point is you're not. Your eyes are very clean. You're not a bad person. The young girl's voice was crisp and sweet, making people enjoy listening to it. It was soft and made people feel relaxed. Are you planning to follow me? Dustless looked at the young girl and said helplessly. To tell you the truth, let alone you, even I don't have a fixed place to stay. Are you sure you want to wander around with me? Yes, yes, yes. Kitty nodded her head vigorously and smiled. If I'm with you, no one will bully me, and I'll have food to eat. You're an outsider. It's good enough that you don't bully others. Dustless scratched the young girl's nose, and the two of them left together. What's your name? Mauer innocently asked, her sparkling and translucent eyes twinkling. Me. Just call me Dustless. Dustless answered casually. After Kitty heard that, she almost made Dustless fall down. Then I'll call you Little Wu from now on, Kitty subconsciously said as her slender white fingers touched her chin. No. Wu Chen's face was resolute. If he was called Little Wu, wouldn't his illustrious reputation be ruined? Absolutely not. There was no room for discussion. Oh right, you're familiar with this city, right? Dustless was afraid that Kitty would be troubled by this question, so he quickly changed the topic. I'm planning to find a job. Do you have any recommendations? A job? After Dustless said that, Kitty immediately lowered her head and pondered. She asked in surprise, with your strength, there's no need for you to work. You can. I know what you want to say, but I've already decided. Although work is boring, idling at home is even more boring. After a long time my body will rust. Dustless opened his mouth to explain. Suddenly, he remembered the few worlds he had been in and the few times he had been a teacher, so he decided, let's pick up my old profession and go to a nearby school to be a teacher. Not long after Dustless and Mauer left, the members of Veda Willow rushed to the place where Tatora had been killed. Lying in a pool of blood, his body was already cold. He had no feeling at all. When he died, his eyes were open, as if they were filled with unwillingness. Mr. Tatara. The members of De Willow lowered their heads to look at Toboryoshi, who was lying in a pool of blood. Some of them even had tears flowing out of their eyes. It was obvious that Toboryoshi was very popular in this violent organization. This is a video camera? Kusanagi Izumo looked at the video camera that fell to the side, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. After looking at it again and again, he was overjoyed. Take Totora's body back and bury him. He won't die in vain. The bastard who killed him won't let him go easily. We must use his blood as a sacrifice to Totora. Kusanagi Izumo shouted, and his whole body was covered in crimson flames. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days later, the news of the death of Totora, a senior cadre of De Willow, swept the entire city in a short time. The entire De Willow was in an uproar, and people were wantonly searching for the murderer. As for the colorless king and Dustless, they also became the focus of attention. But Dustless knew nothing about these trivial matters. He and Mao rented a luxurious villa. Anyway, Dustless has the ability of king's treasure. He lacks everything except money. He can squander it wantonly and live the life of a nouveau riche like a nouveau riche. The middle of the Reed Academy is the closest school nearby. Because of the relationship with Sharingan, Dustless successfully controlled the principal and got the position of a teacher. Why is it a healthcare teacher again? In front of the healthcare teacher's office, Dustless looked unlucky. He used to be a healthcare teacher in other worlds. It was really inconvenient for him to have intimate contact with female students in some places. But Dustless searched the memory of the principal. What this school lacks is only a healthcare teacher. Creak. Just as he pushed the door open, a few students with anxious expressions came into view. I'm the new healthcare teacher. What's the matter? Looking at the anxious girls, Dustless frowned and asked. Suddenly, he found a silver-haired boy lying on the hospital bed. Dustless walked over, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Isn't this the kid from Izona Club? Dustless was quite surprised. He didn't expect to meet this kid here. He couldn't help but guess in his heart. But who is this guy? Is he the colorless king or the first king? The Silver King, Adolf K. Weitzman? Quietly looking at Izona Club, Dustless pondered. In the original work, Mauer modified the memory of Izona Club, causing this guy to not remember who he is. Now that I took Mauer away, this guy's memory is intact. So, the current him is the Silver King, Adolf K. Weitzman? As for the original colorless king, he was probably scared to death by Dustless and left this body long ago. So if he guessed correctly, the Silver King should be the one controlling the personality of this body. After that, Wu Chen asked where this group of students found the Izona Club. Everyone's answer was also very simple. When they found the club, they had fainted in the school. As for where they came from, no one knew. All of you can go back. After a while, Dustless ordered them to leave. He didn't care about Izona Club. This guy's body had the Silver King, and his ability was not taken away. He could be immortal and float without gravity. Even if Dustless left him alone, he would wake up on his own. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2290. In a flash, it was almost noon. Dustless didn't have the skills to cook, so he had no choice but to go to the restaurant with Mauer to have a full meal. During this period, Dustless repeatedly ordered Mauer to put on her clothes. Only then did she put on her clothes reluctantly, as if she was suffering a lot. Dustless could only laugh dryly. But when they came out of the restaurant, tragedy suddenly struck. They were surrounded by a group of fierce-looking people, each of them holding a fighting weapon like a club in their hands. What do you want? Dustless asked with a frown. This group of people looked fierce, and at a glance he knew that they weren't good people. They also had various tattoos. The most conspicuous thing was that Dustless also saw the Bark Willow logo on each of them, and he understood the purpose of this group of people in his heart. These people are not good people. Dustless couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Mauer seemed to have noticed the hostility of these people, and hid behind Dustless very timidly. Immediately, she exposed her head and angrily rebuked. You have found the wrong person, Dustless. Dustless is not the person you are looking for. Little girl, you changed your words quickly. Dustless rolled his eyes at Mauer. Hearing the name Little Wu, Dustless had goosebumps. But she is right. You have found the wrong person. Get out of the way. Looking at the eyes of several people, Dustless said calmly. You think we will get out of the way just because you said so? You don't put our Bark Willow in your eyes. An extremely arrogant tone suddenly came. After the group of hooligans heard the voice, they immediately got out of the way. Then, a young man dressed in a non-mainstream way came into view. He was riding a skateboard confidently, with an unruly expression on his cold face. At first glance, one could tell that he was a delinquent young man. He was not old, estimated to be around 20 years old. How did Mr. Duoliang die? You have to explain it to me clearly. The young man with the skateboard looked at Dustless with hostility. He held a baseball bat and looked extremely arrogant. The first impression he gave was that he was the type who would start a fight if there was a disagreement. Another familiar face. Looking at the newcomer in surprise, Wu Chen recognized this person. If I remember correctly, your name is Hadamiko, right? You know me? Hadamiko was slightly taken aback and immediately said with a deep face, Who allowed you to call me by my name? Dustless's expression changed slightly. A sharp light flashed in his eyes, and his tone turned cold. If I don't call you by your name, what should I call you? Do you want me to call you Tom, Dick, or Harry? Dustless originally had no intention to lower himself to the same level as this Chinibyu youth. However, the other party was not tactful and full of hostility. He did not understand the principle of keeping a low profile at all. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to be polite. You're courting death. Sure enough, this guy really belonged to the conceited and arrogant type. He stepped hard on the ground with his right foot and slid the skateboard over quickly. The bat had already smashed toward Wu Chen's head. You're itching for a beating. Then I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your family. Dustless said to himself, his hands clenched into fists. Xiao xiao xiao. Seeing that the bat was about to hit Dustless's head, in a flash, a black shadow rushed over and blocked in front of Dustless. With a clang sound, a long sword was unsheathed, and the words Fujian, draw your sword could be heard. Bang! Hadamiko's bat hit the long sword, and the rebound force made both of them take a few steps back. The person who suddenly stood up to support Dustless was obviously on the same level as him. Neither of them could do anything to the other. Another acquaintance, Fujian Arubigu. Silver glanced at the person. Of course, he didn't think that he was here to help him. The two of them didn't get along well. And maybe he helped because he was annoyed by Hadamiko. The one in blue? Get out of my way, monkey. After seeing her old enemy, Hadamiko shouted angrily. Meiruaso, it's you. Fu Jian pointed at Wu Chun with an arrogant expression, as if he was announcing his possession. He then said loudly, our leader wants this person. You guys, Fei Wulua, can get lost now. Dustless looked at this scene quietly, and couldn't help but laugh in his heart. What did this group of clowns think of him as? A commodity that anyone could snatch? Or a passerby? They could pick it up and snatch it at will. However, Dustless didn't make a move. He looked calm and resigned to his fate. He just watched silently, and his eyes were fixed on Hadamiko. The reason why he didn't make a move was that he wanted to see why this guy was looking for trouble with him. If he couldn't hold back and crippled him, no one would ask questions. Your leader. Hearing this, Hadamiko smiled proudly. What a coincidence. This guy is also the person our boss is looking for. So monkey, you should go back. Miko, you don't have the final say. Fujian Arubigu also insisted. The two of them looked at each other with hostility, and there was a possibility of a fight at any time. Cough, cough, cough. I'm not interested in your grudges, but I still want to interrupt and ask. Dustless looked at the two of them, and saw that they were about to fight. Suddenly he asked, why are you looking for me? Toshiro was dead, but it had nothing to do with him. The one who killed him was King Colorless. Dustless didn't offend Fujian Arubigu, but he still became their prey. I just don't like you. Looking at Dustless, Hadamiko seemed to be joking, but she also seemed to be serious. Clap, clap, clap. Hearing this, Dustless was stunned for a moment, and immediately clapped his hands. His eyes were filled with coldness in an instant. What a coincidence, you guys have been chattering for a long time, and I also don't like you guys. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2291. I just don't like you. Looking at Dustless, Hadamiko seemed to be joking but also seemed to be serious. Clap, clap, clap. Hearing this, Dustless was stunned and immediately applauded. His eyes were cold in an instant. What a coincidence. You've been chattering for a long time. I don't like you either. Dustless was speechless. Originally, he thought that this group of people had always been arrogant and young, so he was too lazy to argue with them and talk nonsense. Who would have thought that Hadamiko was so arrogant? If someone said to you that he didn't like you and wanted to beat you up, what would you do? Everyone would be irritated, not to mention Dustless's bad temper. Don't like me. Hearing this, Hadamiko was like a cat whose tail was stepped on. She was enraged. She gnashed her teeth and said, Mr. Zun said that he would catch you alive, so I won't hurt you. Now take back your words, and apologize to me. Hadamiko was really angry. As a member of the Red Clan, everyone had their own pride, but now she was despised by Dustless. How could she not be angry? What if I refuse? Dustless asked indifferently. You can be barbaric and unreasonable, why can't I? You can be angry with others, but I can't be angry with you? Why? Dustless maintained his composure from beginning to end. Even if he was already fuming in his heart, he still maintained absolute calm. Why? At this moment, not to mention Hadamiko, even Fujian Yuigu sneered with a contemptuous expression. Of course it's because of this. As soon as his voice fell, he raised the long sword in his hand, full of pride. That's right. Hadamiko, who usually fought with Fujian Yuigu, decisively stood on Fujian Yuigu's side and said righteously, of course it's because of strength. With strength you can beat me, And I don't care. After all, it's because I'm not as good as you. So, now you come with me and apologize. Miko, this guy is valued by our leader. Don't even think about taking him away. The two of them only talked for a few seconds, and then began to fight again. Fu Jianyuega's face was gloomy. What did you say? Say it again if you dare. I'll smash your head. Hadamiko glared at Fu Jianyuegu, her eyes spitting fire, as if she wanted to melt him. You two guys. Dustless could be silent, but Mao could not stand it. After seeing Dustless's strength, he knew how terrible Dustless was. Not to mention these two minions. Even if Red King, Zhou Fengzuan and Blue King Zhongxiang Rusi came, they would not be able to deal with Dustless. Hurry up and apologize, or Dustless will beat you to death. You two will be beaten black and blue, and you won't even recognize your leader. The cat bared its fangs and brandished its claws as a warning. However, it hid behind Dustless from the beginning to the end, as if it was a fox borrowing the tiger's might. Ha! The two who were still quarreling instantly turned their heads and looked at Dustless and sneered. Just by this guy? His arms and legs are thin, and he's not a member of other clans, and he wants to beat us black and blue? Ridiculous. This joke is really tasteless. You're overestimating yourself. Fu Jianyuegu also looked down on Dustless. You two are too weak. Dustless won't even bother to fight. Mao continued, unwilling to be outdone. Otherwise he could kill the two of you with a single finger. Don't get carried away. Hearing this, the two's faces changed, and they looked at Dustless with an unfriendly face, and clenched their fists. Perhaps if they did not order Dustless to be captured alive, they would have already beaten him up to vent their anger. You little girl. Turning his head and patting Mao Er's head, Dustless asked in a bad mood. Are you helping me out, or are you deliberately causing trouble for me? Because of you, they are becoming more and more hostile to me. Who asked them to be so arrogant? They are obviously not your match, but they are still so arrogant. Mao pouted and said with her cheeks pouted, looking very playful and cute. Hearing this, Dustless smiled and immediately turned his head to look at the two. It's useless to apologize. You've successfully infuriated me. Although Mr. Zun wants to capture you alive and not kill you, he can do other things such as giving you a good beating. At this point, Hadamiko's face suddenly turned ferocious. Beating me up? Dustless laughed, and immediately said bluntly, Boy, you should have seen the video, right? You clearly know that the murderer is King Colorless, but you still want to cause trouble for me, which can only mean one thing. You hate me. Looking at Hadamito's hateful eyes, Dustless said bluntly, You hate me for having superpowers, and why it wasn't my head that blocked the bullet for Toshiro. Am I right? The thoughts of violent organizations are really hard to understand. Hearing this, Toshiro didn't say anything, but he thought so in his heart. If Dustless didn't have superpowers and was just an ordinary person, then the bullet would have shattered his body instead of passing through and shattering Toshiro. On the contrary, Toshiro wouldn't have died. It's useless even if you apologize. Mr. Toshiro's death has a lot to do with you. Hadamito looked at Dustless coldly. No. Dustless shook his head, and his eyes instantly became extremely terrifying, like a hungry beast. That oppressive gaze frightened everyone, as if they were being stared at by a furious king, and their whole body trembled in fear. I should be the one saying that. You have successfully angered me, and it's useless to apologize. No one can save you. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2292. You're courting death. Hearing that Dustless was so arrogant, Yadamiwa could not tolerate it anymore. She waved her bat and smashed it at him without hesitation. Since Zhou Fengzuan's order was to capture Dustless alive, Yadamiwa did not go too far. Instead, she held back a little. Bang! The bat smashed toward Dustless's head, but a big hand came and easily caught the iron bat. Caw. Dustless exerted a little force, and the bat, which was as thick as a human arm, suddenly collapsed and shattered like a rotten wood. This guy, is he really strong? He doesn't look like it. He's just a gigolo. Looking at the shattered bat, Yadamiwa stared at Dustless's cold face and frowned. She felt like she had kicked an iron plate. Let's see how strong you are. However, Yadamiwa was a gangster after all, and Wailua was also such a violent organization. He was not very smart and liked to solve problems with his fists. Therefore, he gently slid his skateboard and suddenly flew toward Dustless. His fist went straight toward Dustless's head. Trash. Seeing this, Dustless grinned and stared at Yadamiwa. He said indifferently, Mokutan. Ka ka ka. The ground burst open, and then, a thick tree came out from the ground and changed according to Dustless's will. The tree, which was thicker than a human, condensed into an arm and punched toward Yadamiwa. You're underestimating me. Seeing this, Yadamiwa was not afraid at all. Her fist was covered with dark red flames, and she also punched out. Naive. Wuchen couldn't help but cover his eyes. He didn't want to see the appearance of Hadamiwa being beaten up. This kid still had to contend with Mokutan. Although the power was unlimitedly weakened, it was not something he could contend with. Bang! The power of the wood-released giant fist was too great. It effortlessly sent Hata Misaki flying, and she fell miserably more than 10 meters away. Bang! Ka ka ka. The glass on the opposite street had been smashed by him, and Hadamiwa was lying among the glass shards in a sorry state. You can beat up Meru? Looks like I underestimated you. Fujian Bigu looked at Dustless with a gloomy expression. He was shocked. At first, he thought that this guy was just a pretty boy. His skin was white, and he was even prettier than a woman. He was definitely a flowery martial artist. Who would have thought that he would be so terrifying after being provoked? Come, come, come. Dustless laughed and waved his hand. He sneered. I want to see how you guys are going to beat me up. To be honest, I really want to be beaten up. Just you wait. Hearing this, Fujian was enraged. He held the scabbard with his right arm and said in a hoarse voice, Fujian pull, swish, swish, swish. Before he could completely pull out his sword, a flash of light came head-on, and Dustless's figure instantly appeared in front of Fujiaku, his right hand on his forehead, and his thumb gently flicked. Bang! This seemingly casual attack caused Fujian Yuigu to be severely injured. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was sent flying. Ka ka ka. A deep hole was formed on the wall more than 10 meters away from him. He was lying in the hole with a pale face, unable to move his body. How can he be so strong? Fujiaku was stunned. He had never dreamed that he would be defeated in seconds, and his opponent was not even a king. An outsider? Why haven't I heard of this person before? Even if he is not a king, his strength is enough to compete with a king. Yadamiwa, who was arrogant a moment ago, took a deep breath and could not help but regret. The order given to him by Zhou Fengzuan was to capture Wu Qin alive. To put it bluntly, he was to bring Wu Qin back in one piece. However, at this moment, he had taken the initiative to provoke the other party. Provoking such a powerful enemy seemed to have brought great trouble to Wang Wuluo. What's wrong? Don't have the strength to stand up? Dustless walked in front of the two. His aura was calm, and he was not affected in the slightest. However, Yadamiwa and Fujiaku were both panting heavily. They had obviously reached their limits. Who are you? Yadamiwa looked at Dustless in fear. Her tone was much more respectful. Her indifferent face was filled with endless coldness, as if she was looking at an ant. The human heart is really ugly. Quietly looking down at Yadamiwa, Dustless completely ignored her ugly expression. I didn't mean to go against you guys before, but you guys took an inch and wanted a mile. Why, now that I've shown my strength and got beaten up, do you know that some people are not to be trifled with? What a wretch. Facing Dustless's sarcasm, Yadamiwa was embarrassed. However, Dustless did not go against them before. It was her who kept nagging and refused to let Dustless go. She wanted to make a big deal out of a small matter, which eventually led to this situation. Do you want to continue? Looking down at Yadamiwa and Fujiaku, Dustless said indifferently, small fries like you 1 or 2, 10 or 100, are actually the same. It won't change anything. Don't be too arrogant. Hearing this, both of them were angry. They didn't know where they got the courage to attack from. It was as if a small universe had erupted. They attacked from different directions at the same time. You guys can be arrogant, why can't I? Dustless asked calmly. At the same time, both of his hands were aimed at the two of them. A ray of light quickly formed and shot straight out. Laser. Puchi. Puchi. The speed of the light was too fast. Yadamiwa and Fujiaku did not even have time to react before the light beam directly penetrated their bodies. It was only half an inch away from the position of their hearts. Plop. Both of them fell to the ground. Although Dustless was merciful and did not take their lives were already hanging by a thread. If no one cared, they would definitely die. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2293. Dustless smiled but did not say anything. As long as this guy did not provoke him, he would not be so bored as to argue with Keiichi Subaru. At the end of the day, he was just a piece of trash. Other than the skill death return, which was pretty good, his combat power was close to zero. However, Keiichi Subaru always used his ability to challenge Dustless. He deserved to be beaten up. Well, although it's too much to say this at this time, please return the badge you stole to me. It's very important to me. Amelia walked up to Ferret and said apologetically. Looking closely, Master Rom was sweating profusely and grimacing in pain. There was a shocking wound on his abdomen. His intestines were cut open by Alyssa. It was a horrible sight. Even his internal organs were cut into pieces. With such a serious injury, there was no doubt that he would die. The injury is quite serious. I thought it was just a minor injury. Dustless walked over slowly and frowned. Give you the badge. Hearing this, Ferret suddenly stopped sobbing and said coldly, if it weren't for you uninvited guests, Master Rum wouldn't have been killed. Hey, are you kidding me? It was you who stole Amelia's badge. Is it wrong for us to come and ask for the badge? Her brows tightly knitted, Keiichi Subaru asked with displeasure. But it's a fact that you guys killed Master Rum. Ferret still gritted his teeth and said with a face full of hatred. I'm sorry. This is indeed our responsibility. Amelia blamed herself and apologized. If they hadn't appeared, perhaps Alyssa would have left with the badge after paying the money. But because Amelia, the owner of the badge, had come, Alyssa had turned hostile. Hee. Keiichi Subaru suddenly thought of something and smiled wretchedly. She pretended to sigh and said, Sigh. Wuchen, sometimes it's not good to be too observant. You see, you brought us here and caused the death of Master Luo Mu. You brat. Dustless could not help but turn his head. He thought that he was shameless enough, but compared to Keiichi Subaru, he was not just a little bit worse. Obviously, Keiichi Subaru was deliberately tricking him. It's you? It would have been better if he hadn't said anything. The moment he said that, Ferret, who was crying like a pear blossom, glared angrily at Dustless. I say, this old man isn't dead yet, right? You look at him as if I killed him. Dustless felt helpless. Soon after, he said meaningfully, if it wasn't for me, I'm afraid that all of you would have died. This is also the truth. Amelia nodded. Alyssa's strength was extremely powerful. If they were to rely on the few of them, they would definitely die. If it wasn't for Dustless taking action in time, they would definitely end up like Master Rom, and be cut off by that female pervert. You're twisting words and forcing logic. But Kaiwa Subaru didn't buy it. She sneered. If you didn't bring us here, none of this would have happened. It's all your fault. You killed Master Luo Mu. Kaiwa Subaru's voice was filled with tears as she complained about Dustless with hatred. To Kaiwa Subaru, Dustless was her mortal enemy, because before the return of death, she had been brutally killed by Dustless several times. Therefore, she hated Dustless to the core. Therefore, Kaiwa Subaru would not let go of any opportunity to take revenge or frame him. I say, you're crying so sadly. This old man can't be your biological father, right? Dustless teased. His words made Kaiwa Subaru's face turn green with anger. Besides, this old man is still breathing. Who said that he's dead? Dustless asked indifferently. But his internal organs have been destroyed. Even his heart has been split. Even if he's still alive, how long can he last? Amelia shook her head and said, this kind of injury was too serious. Even she was helpless. Hee hee. Kaiwa Subaru laughed sinisterly and said with disdain, maybe to Dustless this kind of injury is not worth mentioning. He can easily treat it. Boy, you've been talking so much nonsense. You're right this time. I can indeed save Master Luomu. It's a piece of cake. Dustless looked calm and confident. Ha ha. Are you kidding me? Kaiwa Subaru was stunned and sneered. His heart is destroyed. Can you save Master Luomu? Stop dreaming. If you can revive him, I'll call you Big Brother, no, Grandpa. Okay, my good grandson. Dustless grinned, full of ridicule. I haven't done it yet, and you're already calling me Grandpa. I'm flattered. You bastard, how dare you take advantage of me? Kaiwa Subaru was so angry that he clenched his fists tightly. His knuckles cracked. What's wrong? Are you itching for a beating? Dustless was stunned. A strong killing intent rushed towards Kaiwa Subaru. Phew. Kaiwa Subaru's body suddenly felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. His mind was controlled by his emotions. This guy in front of him was unreliable. Challenging him was just asking for humiliation. Can you really save Master Luomu? If you can do it, I can give you the badge. Ferret looked at Dustless nervously with a sincere face. Dustless, Amelia came over and pulled Dustless's clothes. She said gratefully, you saved my life. I'm already very grateful to you. But Master Luomu. Amelia's voice sank at the end. Although she believed in Dustless's ability, how could he revive Master Luomu when his internal organs were destroyed? She could even see that Master Luomu's heart was shattered. If I can't save him, I'm your grandpa. Kaiwa Subaru looked at Dustless with hatred and disgust. He did not have a good impression of this bastard who killed him 3 times. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2294. Wu Chen looked at Kai Yuezue indifferently. He was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He thought that this kid was an idiot. Why should he talk nonsense with a retard? The injury is really serious. Staring at Master Ram, Dustless frowned slightly. His internal organs were badly mutilated. It's a miracle that he's still alive. Can he be saved? Ferret suddenly grasped Dustless's hands and asked anxiously. Master Ram can be regarded as her only family. It's just a small problem. Dustless smiled confidently, with a warm smile on his face, and immediately, under everyone's surprised gaze, he put his hands close to Master Ram's abdomen. His heart was damaged? Then let's create another one. This sounded inconceivable, but it wasn't much of a problem for Silver, who had mastered the yin-yang escape technique. Uzumaki Naruto once used yin-yang release to create a pair of eyes for Kakashi. Now, creating an intact heart is not a problem for Dustless. Buzz! His right hand suddenly erupted with a golden light. And then, under everyone's surprised gaze, this light nourished the badly mutilated body, and the broken part miraculously grew flesh again. This. Everyone was stupefied, especially Amelia. She covered her small mouth with her right hand, and opened it so wide that a fist could fit in it. She looked at Wu Chun in disbelief. Amelia knows healing magic, but in the end, it's only used to treat skin injuries. Dustless is so heaven-defying that he can repair damaged organs. Is this something that a human can do? It's a miracle. Master Ram. Ferret saw the healed abdomen and the regenerated internal organs, and her heartbeat, which was about to stop, accelerated again. Hoo-hoo-hoo. Seeing that Dustless wasn't spouting nonsense, Ferret and Amelia both breathed a sigh of relief. To the two of them, this was the best ending. But someone didn't think so. Really cured? Seeing this, Keiichi Subaru was stunned. She stared at Wu Chun. Thinking of the promise she made before, she suddenly regretted it. Do I really have to call him Grandpa? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. I'd rather die again. Kai Yuemao shook her head like a rattledrum. Calling him Grandpa Dustless would be better than calling him Grandpa Dustless. Especially with Amelia watching from the side. How could Kai Yuemao endure this? Kid, don't you understand? Dustless glanced at Keiichi Subaru, who was in a dilemma, and sighed softly in his heart. No matter how many times you have been reincarnated, thousands or tens of thousands of times, in front of absolute strength, you have to bow down. Strength determined the gap between them. In any case, Katsuki Subaru was no match for Dustless. Alright. About a few minutes later, Master Ram's damaged organs were all recreated by Dustless using Inyang Escape. He also used medical ninjutsu to inject a large amount of life force into the old man's pale cheeks. Thank you, benefactor. After Lord Rum regained consciousness, he bowed to Dustless without saying a word. Get up, it's just a small matter. Dustless smiled faintly. He knew that Master Ram's character was ferocious and frightening, but his nature wasn't bad. Earlier, when Amelia and the others were in danger, Master Ram clearly knew that the enemy was powerful, but he still acted without hesitation. Here you go. Ferret's small face also bloomed with a brilliant smile, very sunny, and bounced the badge to Dustless. Finally, I'm free. Looking at the exquisite badge in his hand, Wu Chen heaved a sigh of relief and immediately handed it to Amelia with a smile. Miss Amelia, I'll leave it to you to keep. It's time for me to leave. When his voice fell, Dustless shrugged, yawned and turned to leave. His eyes were a little sleepy, and he really wanted to find a place to sleep. Right, suddenly thinking of something, Dustless's footsteps suddenly stopped, his eyes looked around, and immediately frowned. Where did that kid go? You mean, Subaru? Thinking of the grudge between them, Amelia immediately understood Dustless's intention. After all, there was also the bet just now. That kid tricked me 3 or 4 times. If I don't break his leg, I can't vent the hatred in my heart, Dustless said to himself. Break my leg? Hiding behind a rock, the corner of Kaiwa Subaru's mouth twitched. When she was about to get up and run for her life, a flash suddenly appeared in front of her, and Dustless's body appeared. Fulfill the bet, or let me break one of your legs, choose one. Dustless smiled very kindly, but in Kaiwa Subaru's eyes, it was more terrifying than a demon. Grandpa! Forced into a corner, Kaiwa Subaru finally opened her mouth in shame. The moment her voice fell, her whole face was bright red, as if it was on fire. She couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. She had lost all her face. Dustless, I'll definitely tear you into pieces. Kaiwa Subaru swore in her heart, her cheeks were twisted. Come if you're not afraid of torture. Dustless turned his head and didn't say anything. Since he had already offended this kid, it didn't matter if he offended him completely. He wasn't afraid of him anyway. Wait. Just when Dustless was about to leave, Amelia suddenly stopped him and trotted in front of Dustless. She said embarrassedly, It's all my fault before. If you don't mind, you can stay in my house for a few days. Stay in your house. Dustless's face was full of confusion. After thinking for a while, he didn't seem to have anywhere to go. Okay then, I have nowhere to go anyway. Lucky guy. Seeing this, Kaiwa Subaru was envious and jealous. Why wasn't she as lucky as Dustless? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2295. Dustless didn't care about Kaituki Subaru's complicated expression. Since he had nowhere else to go, he might as well leave with Amelia. He didn't have much ambition, and there was nothing in this world that could tempt Dustless. All he wanted was to find a place to eat and fill his stomach. Even though Amelia was still prejudiced against him, she had let it go in the end. No matter what, finding a place to stay for the night was better than wandering alone. Get out of here. Dustless scolded Kaituki Subaru. After all, Amelia didn't invite him to stay at her place. Don't be a busybody. Amelia didn't even say anything. Who are you to be so long-winded? Glaring at Dustless, Kaituki Subaru shamelessly walked to Amelia and complained. I'm lost and I can't remember the way home. Can I stay at your place for a while? If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't agree to let someone stay at their place, but Amelia was different. This innocent girl was too kind. No problem, come back with us. Amelia's face bloomed with a gentle smile, like a blooming flower, intoxicating people. Humph. Hearing this, Kaiwa Subaru nodded quickly. Then, she glanced at Wu Chen valiantly and proudly. as if she was the winner. This idiot. Does he really think that it's good to stay at that pervert's house? Isn't it better to just casually find a place, get a wife without any worries, and live out the rest of your life in mediocrity? Why does he have to court death? That clown isn't easy to deal with. Kaituki Subaru, this idiot, is really brainless. As a transmigrator, he naturally knew what Amelia's so-called home was. It was the home of Roswell L. Mazes, who was also the ruler of the border Marquis. There was also a pair of sisters who were naturally dumb but very wary of others, Rem and Ram, and Beatrice, who was responsible for guarding the library. And Dustless also understood that the person who hired Alyssa this time was actually Roswell L. Mazes. This guy was quite smart. He also knew the identity of Kaituki Subaru, knew that he came from another world, and also knew that Kaituki Subaru had the ability to change the world. It was worth mentioning that Rosvar held one of the gospel and could predict the future to a certain extent. According to the hints of the gospel, he knew that after slaying the dragon and getting the dragon's blood, he could resurrect his teacher, the Witch of Lust, who was also Rosvar's lover. He didn't even mind killing the most reliable person to resurrect the Witch of Lust. So Kaituki Subaru took the initiative to live with Rosvals as a matter of course. Since you don't want to live a leisurely life, then live a good life to live in hell. As well to stay was to stay as well as he was to stay. His stay with him. If he died, Dustless would also fall into his trap, which was extremely troublesome. That's why he felt that this kid was annoying. Wouldn't it be better for him to disappear peacefully? Why did he have to come out and seek death? Are you jealous of me? I'm telling you, Dustless, our battle has just begun, and I won't give Amelia to you. Kaituki Subaru leaned close to Dustless's ear and announced proudly, "Is that so?" Dustless was not angry. He glanced at Kaituki Subaru lightly and said, "To be fair, I'm really not interested in that silver-haired girl. I'm immune to young people's love. Compared with that kind of boring thing, I prefer to sleep. And if I want something, I can just grab it. Why should I care about other people's feelings? This is the privilege of the strong." "Then why are you still pestering Amelia?" Kaituki Subaru said unkindly. Wu Chen suddenly smirked twice and said sarcastically, "I'm not interested in her, but I don't want you to carry a beauty home even more. Living together with a good-for-nothing like you, it's really hard on her." "You. Wait and see." Kaituki Subaru's face turned red, because of Dustless's words. This was a typical act of sabotage. Even if Dustless could not get something, he would not let Kaituki Subaru get it even if he smashed it. After about an hour's journey, Dustless and Kaituki Subaru followed Amelia to a magnificent villa. What a big house! Kaituki Subaru looked at the villa in front of him like a country bumpkin. Did I worry too much before? Looking at Kaituki Subaru's idiotic face, Dustless always felt that he had overestimated this kid. Just by looking at his appearance, he knew that this kind of idiot had been killed by someone who knew who the murderer was. Lady Amelia. In the luxurious hall, two sisters in maid uniform stood respectfully in front of Amelia. Obviously, they were the servants of this mansion. The two sisters looked exactly the same. The only difference was that one of them had blue hair and blue eyes, while the other had pink hair and pink eyes. The one with blue hair seems to be Rem, and the pink one seems to be Lamu. Looking at the two sisters, Dustless showed a friendly and gentle smile. Although he was talking to himself, his words angered Kaituki Subaru, who had always been against him. "Rem, your mother? You bastard, are you scolding me?" "Dustless." Kaituki Subaru looked at Dustless angrily. This bastard dared to scold her most respected mother. It was unforgivable. "Are you king kidding me?" Dustless's mouth twitched. Finally, he helplessly covered his face. He really had to give in to this weirdo. There was no cure for him. No wonder he had been killed several times when he had just entered the other world. His IQ was really high. Could it be that the witch who summoned Kaituki Subaru is also blind? She found such a retard to make up the numbers. What a joke. Dustless complained in his heart. Kaituki Subaru's IQ was really unflattering. No wonder Dustless was judged as the most tragic male lead of the year before he had transmigrated. He had to be killed 5 or 6 times before he realized who was the one who had tricked him. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 reviews plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2296. Although Dustless didn't know why these people valued him so much that they were willing to surround the entire Reed Academy to find him, he guessed that it was because he had almost killed Fu Jian. That was the only grudge he had with the King of Blue. Remember, search every teacher in this school one by one. Investigate their background, identity, and the location of their families, the head of ritual rites said solemnly. We cannot forgive the arrogant bastard who dared to provoke Scepter 4. We must make him understand the price he has to pay for provoking us. Make the enemy pay a heavy price. The declaration of the Ancestral Statue Rights Division was like the bugle horn before the attack. Everyone was impassioned, and everyone swore that they would capture the bastard who provoked them and torture him. Leader, isn't this a little too much? It's unwise to surround the school rashly. It's the same as the Red Clan. A beautiful woman frowned. Her name was Danji Mashiri, and she was a loyal member of the head of ritual rites. Shiri, do you think this is too much? The head of ritual rites' eyes flashed with wisdom. She smiled faintly and said, You must think that only Zhou Feng would act so rashly, but I have to tell you that I would do the same thing. That bastard almost killed our comrade. If we don't find him, who would look at Scepter 4 in the eye? This is a matter of dignity. I understand. Danji Mashiri nodded slightly. For a clan like Scepter 4, dignity was very important. They couldn't tolerate being humiliated. However, Dustless's actions were equivalent to slapping Scepter 4 in the face. Hey, are all these people here for me? To be honest, I'm flattered. I've only just arrived and I've already become the center of attention. On the deserted main road, a lazy voice suddenly struck and entered everyone's ears. This voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it clearly because this person was too arrogant. However, it doesn't matter how many cats and dogs there are. It's meaningless. You're the leader of Scepter 4, the King of Blue from the Ancestral Right Division, aren't you? Dustless walked over step by step with his hands in his pockets and a gentle smile in his eyes. You dare to take the initiative to come to me? Dan Shirley looked coldly at Dustless, not bothering to hide his murderous intent. Their number 3, Fuji Arubigu, was almost killed by this guy. This guy actually dared to show his face in public. He was simply not afraid of death. Why don't you dare to come out? Dustless met Danji Mashiri's gaze. At first, I thought that you were here to thank me. After all, I spared Fujiwara's life. In my opinion, you should be grateful. If I had known that you would come to me like this, I would have chopped that guy into 8 pieces and hung his corpse at the entrance of Scepter 4. Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. Their hearts were in their throats. Even Danji Mashiri was stunned. This guy was too arrogant. He actually dared to talk about chopping Fuji Arubigu into 8 pieces in front of the Ancestral Right Division. Wasn't this a slap to the King of Blue's face? You're very good. The Ancestral Right Division's face was ashen. The veins on his arms were bulging. There was no doubt that he was enraged. If his opponent was a king, he could reluctantly accept it. After all, they were both kings. However, Dustless was just an outsider. What right did he have to challenge him? Are you surprised? Are you shocked? All along, you kings have been too arrogant. You can't accept being slapped in the face. You think it's a great humiliation, right? Dustless curled his lips in disdain. The corner of his mouth lifted into a mocking smile. I don't mind telling you that I didn't mean to call you a piece of trash. You're just one of the trash. I meant to tell you that all kings are just trash in my eyes. The moment he said this, everyone in Scepter 4 went numb. Their minds were in a mess. This guy was taking their lives as a joke. The kings were the representatives of supremacy. No one had ever dared to challenge them. And Dustless had insulted all the kings. He had offended all of them. This country could forget about living well in the future. The Ancestral Right Division didn't say anything. He used his next action to express everything. Ancestral Right Division, draw your sword. Clang. With an ear-piercing roar, the sword on the Ancestral Right Division's waist was unsheathed. Under the sunlight, the sharp sword was extremely dazzling. No one dared to look at it directly. Don't you want to come at me together? Wu Chen was calm and collected. His face didn't show any sign of loosening or fear from beginning to end. Enough. I can kill you alone. The ancestral right division refused coldly. He stepped forward at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, the tip of his sword was about to pierce Dustless's throat. Die. The ancestral right division roared. The sharp sword in his hand suddenly pierced forward. The tip of the sword was surrounded by azure waves. That was the power of a king that belonged only to him. It wasn't hard to see that the ancestral right division really wanted to kill Dustless. Naturally, Dustless wouldn't show any mercy. Boom, boom, boom. An unparalleled aura erupted, like an ancient dragon that had just awoken. Just as the tip of the sword was about to pierce through Dustless's body, the ancestral statue rights minister, who was affected by this aura, suddenly paled and was sent flying. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2297. Time quickly passed. Dustless was sleeping very soundly. Even if someone tried to assassinate him, they might be able to succeed. When he woke up, Rem and Lam were standing in front of Dustless. You didn't assassinate me, and then my body automatically healed, right? Staring at the two sisters for a few seconds, Wu Chen seemed to be joking, but also seemed to be serious. Customer, you must be joking. Rem and Lam have been waiting for you to wake up. Why would we harm you? As the elder sister, Lam spoke first and glanced at Remington. Rem nodded and walked over with her clothes. She boldly lifted Dustless's blanket and saw Dustless's naked body without blushing at all. What are you doing? Dustless asked in surprise, helping the customer put on his clothes. Lam also took Dustless's clothes and walked over. The two sisters looked at Dustless from both sides. No need. You can all leave. I can take care of this myself. Wu Chen waved his hand and immediately grabbed the clothes of the two sisters. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Perhaps the two sisters felt that there was something wrong with him, so they made such an outrageous move to test him. Oh right. Suddenly thinking of something, Wu Chen looked at the two sisters without blinking and asked, You didn't hear bad things about me from Kai Yuemao, did you? Customer, you must be mistaken. That customer named Kai Yueshu didn't say anything bad about you. On the contrary, he said a lot of good things about you. Rem's tone was filled with disdain, as if she was mocking Dustless's narrow-mindedness. That kid said good things about me. Dustless almost jumped up as if he was struck by lightning. His face was filled with disbelief. That Kai Yueshu wanted to kill him as soon as possible. How could he say good things about him? What did he say? Dustless ignored Rem's disdainful look. He really wanted to hear what Kai Yuemu said about him. He said that you are handsome and strong, and that you can defeat a group of strong people by yourself. He told us to think highly of you, and if possible, choose you as our spouse. Rem looked at Dustless seriously. He didn't look like he was mocking Dustless. What does that brat mean? Dustless wasn't happy at all. Instead, he couldn't help but frown. Why did Kai Yueshu suddenly change her temperament and help him pick up girls? This unrealistic idea was abandoned by Dustless at the first moment. Is there anything else? Dustless asked, feeling a little strange. There are still some. Lam lowered his head and thought for a while. Then he said that you defeated Ilusa, the gut hunter, and that you're very strong. You can destroy a town by yourself. That brat. So that's what he's doing. How is that a compliment? He's obviously trying to kill me. That good for nothing, his strength is average, but his ability to scheme is impressive. Dustless suddenly understood. At the same time, he looked at the two girls from the corner of his eyes. He could clearly feel that compared to before, the surveillance was much more obvious now. They were almost staring at Dustless, not letting go of any suspicious movements. Dustless was wondering why the two girls took the initiative to check his body. If he guessed correctly, they were trying to find some clues. Kai Yueshu exaggerated Dustless's strength. Rem and Lam would definitely think that Dustless was suspicious, so they kept a close watch on him. For example, they would watch him even when he was sleeping. They were digging a hole for Dustless to jump into. That brat! Dustless's eyebrows flickered, and he guessed in his heart. This ability of foresight, is it the skill of the samsara of death again? For some things, Kaiyueshu always had the upper hand. According to Dustless's guess, it was the so-called rewind skill. He could get information about Dustless from infinite deaths. He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Does he think he's so great just because he has a golden finger? Dustless muttered. Then he immediately put on his clothes and laughed secretly. But that brat's ability to transfer hatred is very good. I guess Kaiyueshu also knows that the two sisters are not good for him. After all, there's the smell of a witch. So he deliberately praised me and got close to Amelia. That's why the two sisters are watching me when I'm sleeping. In fact, the two sisters didn't kill him, which showed that they were still suspicious of Dustless. Lord Roswald has returned and invited the guests to have dinner together. The two sisters said seriously, and when they mentioned Roswald, their faces were respectful. I'm hungry, lead the way. Dustless smiled. Since he was here, he would meet the mastermind behind the scenes sooner or later. You'd better be sensible. It's a pity that such a beautiful villa doesn't have an owner. Looking at the gorgeous and pleasant courtyard, Dustless muttered to himself, and there was a trace of horrible murderous intent in his words. The restaurant used for dining with guests was brightly lit and extremely luxurious. It's so lively. Dustless, who was let in, looked around and found that everyone was ready except for him. You have a lot of face. It was fine if he didn't see Dustless, but when he saw Dustless, Kaitsuki Subaru said in a strange tone, If I didn't know, I would have thought that you were the owner of this house. Kaitsuki Subaru looked at Dustless very unscrupulously. Although he knew that Dustless was powerful, he was not afraid. He could rewind infinitely, which was equivalent to an immortal body. This kid is really self-righteous. Dustless was too lazy to care about Kaitsuki Subaru and sat down naturally. He was not a waste like Kaitsuki Subaru, so he didn't need to be restrained. Ah, this must be Dustless. Thanks to you. Otherwise Lord Amelia would have fallen. Roswald, who was sitting at the head of the table, was dressed in a clown costume and looked at Dustless with gratitude. This guy really knows how to pretend, and he pretends so well, as if everything has nothing to do with him. Humans really do rely on tricks to survive. They are all great actors. Dustless smiled and didn't say anything. In fact, the person who hired Gut Hunter, Ilusa, was Roswald. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2298. This person's background was clearly extraordinary. Although he was extremely old and had white hair and beard, no one dared to underestimate him. Especially when he appeared and realized who this old man was. The ancestral statue religion minister's berserk aura dissipated. His expression changed slightly, and he looked at the old man respectfully and said, It's been a long time since we last met. I didn't expect you to come in person. The old man did not speak. He just looked at the ancestral statue rites and nodded. Finally, he frowned and looked at Dustless. He was slightly deep, biting cold, and puzzled. You don't have to look. You want to see through me, old man? I really don't mean to discourage you, but to me, you're too weak. After a long silence, Dustless withdrew his gaze from the Golden King. His eyes were calm. This guy? Does he really think he's made of diamonds? That he can withstand this old man's attack? Not to mention others, even the ancestral statue rites broke out in cold sweat. He could not help but give Dustless a thumbs up. He knew the Golden King's character very well. He was serious, meticulous, and could not be provoked. And most importantly, although the Golden King was old, he was still very strong. He was almost invincible among all the kings. It seems that there will be a fierce battle next. The ancestral statue rites was very sure that the Golden King was provoked. If he kept quiet, would he still be the invincible Golden King? Moreover, if he tolerated it today, there might be other kings who would challenge his dignity in the future. Some things once set a precedent, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, the ancestral statue writes was 100% sure that the Golden King and Dustless would have a fierce battle. When the time came, he could take the opportunity to deal with Dustless. I'm old. I'm not as good as you young people. Just when everyone thought the situation was about to go out of control, and it was likely to evolve into a battle between the kings, the Golden King's sudden words made everyone almost bite their tongues. Their expressions were extremely strange. Even the ancestral statue writes looked at the Golden King in disbelief. These words were undoubtedly admitting defeat. In his opinion, this old man had always fought. When had he ever bowed his head? But now he actually admitted defeat. Am I dreaming? Even the usually calm and wise ancestral right division widened his eyes in horror. He stared straight at the Golden King, as if trying to see through his flaws, thinking that the old man was acting. When Dustless was careless, he would give him a fatal blow. But from the beginning to the end, the Golden King just looked at Dustless quietly, without the slightest sign of fighting. Make it short. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't waste my time. Dustless waved his hand and said bluntly, although I'm also very leisurely, I'm not so bored as to chat with an old man. I'd rather sleep with the extra time. My reason for coming is very simple. Hearing this, the Golden King was not angry. He said seriously, if you and Zhongzhou fight, this city will inevitably suffer a devastating blow. My purpose here is very simple. I hope you can stop this duel. It was originally a small matter, so I hope you won't make a big fuss. Destroy this city? Maybe. Dustless nodded thoughtfully, and then said lightly, but I can tell you clearly that before this city is destroyed, that kid will die on the spot. You don't think that others are made of mud, and don't overestimate yourself. The ancestral right division's face turned red. How could he tolerate being looked down upon by Dustless? Shut up, Zhongzhou. The Golden King glared fiercely at the ancestral right division and scolded. Your subordinate is asking for humiliation. He clearly knows that he's not his opponent, but he still stubbornly challenged others. He's lucky that he wasn't killed. As a person, he should know his own limits. An ant should have the despair of an ant. He recklessly provoked someone stronger than him. Even if he was killed, who could he blame for that? But this guy is related to the colorless king. He must know about the colorless king. Fu Jian was just following the rules. The ancestral right division said unwillingly, he's not wrong, but this guy didn't cooperate at all. Instead, he hurt my people. Rules? Hearing this, Dustless sneered. You're a king after all. Don't you know that rules only restrict the weak? Or let me ask you this. Will you obey the rules set by others? These are two different things. Don't talk nonsense. The ancestral right division was really speechless after hearing Dustless's words. He didn't know how to refute Dustless. Zhongzhou, take your people and leave. This matter ends here. The Golden King was expressionless, and his tone had a hint of supreme command. Boom boom boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the Golden King's aura burst out, surging like a raging wave. It was unstoppable and swept across the entire place. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and their bodies began to sway. The ancestral right division's expression changed drastically. His breathing was a little hurried, and there were bean-sized beads of sweat on both sides of his temples. Do you know the difference now? The Golden King's tone was indifferent. He looked at the ancestral right division, and his eyes were extremely threatening. They were as dazzling as the sun, and no one dared to look at him directly. The ancestral right division was naturally unconvinced. He tried his best to straighten his back and looked at the Golden King. I won't. The ancestral right division's words stopped abruptly because the Golden King pointed in the direction of Dustless. He also looked over, and his pupils suddenly shrank. He was immediately terrified. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2299. Agreed? It shouldn't be. He should have directly rejected Dustless. Kayatsuki Subaru was confused and couldn't help but curse in his heart. Why didn't I think of becoming the housekeeper of this family? It's really a mistake. I will be commanded by this guy in the future. Looking at Dustless's smiling face, Kaitsuki Subaru was depressed, and his back was a little cold. He had been plotting against Dustless before, and now this guy had seized the opportunity. He would certainly not let him go easily. Don't think that I'm easy to bully. At worst, we will all die together. Looking up at Dustless, Kaitsuki Subaru's eyes were full of resentment and hatred, thinking that he was tricked by Dustless because he was one step behind. But Kaitsuki Subaru had no chance to turn back at this moment. After all, what was done could not be undone. Time passed quickly, and the dinner gradually came to an end. Everyone had different complicated thoughts, although they were still talking and laughing during the dinner, but in fact, they were already divided. Roswald first hated Dustless, and so did Kaitsuki Subaru. The two were destined to fight to the death. After all, before the samsara of death, he was slaughtered by Dustless countless times, and even his body was fed to the dogs. Kaitsuki Subaru had been burying this deep hatred in his heart, so he always targeted Dustless, in all aspects. The two were destined to be enemies like fire and water. Gulp. After eating and drinking, Kaitsuki Subaru lay on the chair and rested comfortably, during which he also chatted with Amelia, but she was cold and indifferent. As for why, Kaitsuki Subaru knew that it was because he had falsely accused Dustless before, and after the truth came out, Amelia was somewhat alienated from him, and Dustless also saved her, so Amelia's impression of Dustless had greatly changed. But even so, Kaitsuki Subaru was not the kind of person who would give up easily. Even if he lost a round, it was impossible for him to give up and admit defeat. After all, Kaitsuki Subaru had always been convinced that he was a man with a protagonist aura, a visitor from another world, and Dustless was nothing to him. Ha ha ha. Kaieya Subaru belched contentedly. When she was about to go back to her room to rest, Wu Chen's angry voice came from the opposite side. You scum! Why don't you go and clean up the table for me? You want to sleep after eating? Are you a pig? Why? After being stunned for a moment, Kaieya Subaru asked. Didn't you just say that you want to be a servant in this family? Isn't it your job to clean up the bowls? Dustless gloated. You win. Hearing this, the corner of Keiichi Subaru's mouth twitched violently. Unknowingly, he seemed to have dug a big hole for himself. I'll play you to death slowly in the future. Don't think that having an immortal body is a good thing. Dustless sneered and left. A thick killing intent flashed across his face. Before leaving, he did not forget to look coldly at Roswald. Time flew by like a white horse. In the blink of an eye, a few hours had passed. The sky was completely dark. In the dead of the night, the stars in the sky were beautiful, but there was an indescribable silence. Rom, what do you think of those two people? In the quiet study, Roswald stared at the quiet night sky. Contrary to the casual and natural clown during dinner, Roswald's eyes were deep now, like bottomless stagnant water. Just by looking at this expression, one would know that he was a cunning opponent. Both of them are dangerous. Rom bowed his head and pondered for a while, and immediately said with caution, Dustless is very powerful and unfathomable, and that Kaieya will look silly, but actually wants to deliberately get close to Lady Amelia. Both of them are very suspicious. Yes, what you said makes sense, but I think that Dustless is more dangerous. Roswald's eyes narrowed slightly, emitting a dangerous light. Then do you want to? Rom didn't continue to say more. The meaning of the action of cutting his throat was self-evident. That's not necessary. Roswald shook his head gently. He still had a vague understanding of Dustless's strength. After all, even the gut hunter Ilyssa, who was previously hired, was crushed. If Rom went to challenge Dustless alone, the result would definitely be the same. Then how do we deal with Dustless? Such a dangerous guy will have an accident in all likelihood. Rom frowned and asked. Her killing intent also disappeared. She had never refused Roswald's orders and obeyed unconditionally. Just find a way to get him away. There is no need to fall out with him, but this matter needs to be done carefully. You should understand that Lady Amelia is a grateful person. Dustless saved her, so she must be very grateful. Finding a groundless reason to drive away Dustless is definitely not going to work. Lady Amelia will definitely not be willing. Roswald analyzed wisely, but in fact he was also having a headache. When it came to Dustless, there was nothing he could do. To Roswald, Dustless was like a hedgehog with spikes all over his body. If he approached Dustless rashly, not only would he not get any benefits, but he would also be stabbed by Dustless and the whole plan may fail. However, although Roswald was unwilling to be an enemy of a jinx like Dustless, some people did not think so. Just like in the original work, in front of Dustless's room, an uninvited guest appeared at this moment with a scary meteor hammer in his hand. Without a doubt, the only person who could wield this weapon was Remington. The meteor hammer was dragged on the ground, emitting a terrifying caw-caw-caw sound. It sounded extremely oppressive and frightening. If it was that idiot Kaiuemu, he might have already been knocked down. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.